All right, once again, everyone, welcome and thank you so much for joining us live for this How to Land Bank for a Profit here in Belize. Ambergris Caye is indeed my home. This is where I have called home for the last 12 years. I'm originally from New York, and I'm excited to share this information with you. Land banking has really been a buzzword lately, and it's something that a lot of investors do end up doing here in Belize for the appreciation, especially now with Belize being at the sweet spot of the real estate investment curve. When you land bank, you're able to pick up the land, let it appreciate over time, and then sell it when the timing makes sense for you. And you don't have to deal with any of those pesky renters. You don't have to deal with property management or HOA. You just let the property appreciate and sell it when the time is right for you. So with me, I have a very special guest, Sarah Jung. And Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit more about your real estate journey here in Belize?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. So, not too long ago, just a few short years ago, I had discovered Belize. And just like you, if you have not been to Belize, I came down with really not knowing what to expect. I'm a real estate investor. I've been investing for several years. I've also have a 20-year lending background. So I come from residential lending, multifamily, and a portfolio of rental property. So I've definitely invested in a number of different types of assets. And I've never really considered investing outside of the US until I discovered Belize. And one of the things that I loved about Belize that I didn't realize was all of the wonderful things, the fundamentals that the country offers as far as the being a tax haven, the financial incentives, the tax zero capital gains, which we're going to talk about. And it's the only English speaking country in Central America, which I just didn't know. So once I discovered all of these really things about Belize that were really great as an investor, it was really a no-brainer for me. And the great thing that about land banking, my partner and I bought a number of parcels around the island. And one of the great things is that again, there's no maintenance fees, there's no costs except for very low property taxes, and it was just a great place to bank some money for the long term. I didn't have a chance to invest in like Cabo or Cancun or Tulum or Costa Rica. And I've known people that are much older than myself that have and developed and bought parcels there 20 years ago, and now those same parcels are, $1 million. And so when I discovered Belize, I said, you know what, I'm not going to miss this opportunity for the next decade of my life. This is a place that I'm going to start land banking, and I'm going to doing some investment and some developing. And it's been really amazing to see just in the last few years that I've been down there investing. That just some of the changes that have been going on the island just in a very short amount of time, just right before my eyes. And so it's very exciting for me to see. It's very exciting for me to see the development and the activity that's going on the island, and just having the opportunity to be there as an investor as well as a developer and just a visitor that can just really enjoy the island. So it's been a really great discovery for my partners and I. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And you really hit a few great points there. I think one of the biggest, though, is that it's not too late. Sometimes people come in and especially if they've been following Belize for a couple of years, a few years, and they're seeing what prices are now. Yes, of course, they're going to be more today than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. But guess what? They're probably also going to be more in 5, 10, 15 years from now. And we know that there's just finite amounts of land, especially on the islands over here on Ambergris Caye, and the development is starting to move at a pretty rapid pace, especially when we compare it to the pace in the past. So I think this is really the sweet spot. I think it's the right time for people to be coming in, especially people who maybe aren't necessarily the pioneers, maybe not necessarily the people who are the very first ones to do it. The Robinson Crusoes. Now we're seeing more of proof of concept, and I think that it's an easier time for people who are just starting to explore their options overseas. So I'm going to throw up a quick poll, and everyone, this will pop up on your screen over here. But let me know, have you been to Belize yet? There you go. You should have a pop-up on your screen. Have you been to Belize yet? I am curious. We do often get folks who've been to Belize and are joining us now for the how-to. They loved it so much, and they are looking for ways that they can pick up their piece of paradise. So I'll give you about 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll close the poll. And here we see, I'll share the results. We see about 50% of the people have been here before. That's awesome. But 20% have not yet, but they booked their plane ticket. Fantastic. And then At 30% have not, but they are planning their trip soon. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that we have a good mix of folks here. So for those of you who have been here before, where I'm talking about may resonate with you. You may be able to recognize some places. For those of you who haven't, on your trip down, we'll be sure to point those out to you. So what we're going to do quickly is a case study to dive into the market and to see what's been going on. We're also going to look at the steps to identify the right property. So what you should be doing when you're looking to land bank for a profit. And then we'll go through an insider opportunity with you. This one now has 70% financing, which I know is a lot more, which is very rare actually here on the island, especially to find 70% financing, since it is very difficult for foreigners to obtain financing here. So with that, we're going to just jump right in. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis about Belize. So for those of you who aren't aware, it's a small country. English is the official language, but population, it's about 400,000. When you look at the actual size of Belize, it's about the size of Massachusetts. Now, it is the second smallest country in Central America, but it has the smallest population by far. El Salvador is actually the smallest country in El Salvador and has about 6-7 million population wise. So we're able to see that Belize, it's still young. They only gained their independence in 1981. And there's really, really beautiful land here, which we're going to be seeing. In addition to that, like we mentioned, English is the official language. And I know this is a big reason why investors ultimately decide to invest in Belize compared to places like Mexico or Costa Rica or Panama, where if you know English, you're set. Yes, if you want to learn Spanish, you can. If you want to learn Creole, you can certainly learn that as well. You will hear a lot of that being spoken here, but all of your paperwork, all of your legal documents are going to be in English. And as common law, it's something that many of us are comfortable and used to because of what they practice in North America. Now, Belize has been known since the 70s, I would say, by the adventure travelers who are coming down for fishing and diving and snorkeling. In the 70s, it was off the beaten path, right? People who are coming to Belize were looking for that adventure. Over the years, over the last 40, 50 years, Belize has really emerged as a very family-friendly, family-oriented destination in the Caribbean. It's colorful and quirky and charming. And there's just something about being here in Belize that you don't find in other destinations around the Caribbean or in Central America. So of course, one of the biggest factors is the reef that parallels Belize. On Ambergris Caye, we're only 5 minutes away from the reef. From coast to reef, it's only about 5 minutes by boat. So you're able to be in the water, snorkel, dive, fish, do all of that in just a couple of minutes. But if you're looking for more of that jungle sort of environment, you want to go to the waterfalls, go hiking, you can easily get to the mainland and do that from here as well. So adventure tourism is, I think, what we'll continue to see. But of course, we have more of the mainstream travelers who are coming here to Belize now. And because it is such a small country, Belize really was overshadowed by our neighboring countries, right? By Mexico in terms of tourism. People had heard about Cancun for years, but now they're really just starting to hear about Belize, which makes it a great time for the investors to be coming in. But we're also finding that people are deciding Belize over other countries because of these three considerations. Number one is that there's low rental income tax. So if at some point you decide to own land and you want to build a home on the land and you want to rent out your property, you're only going to be paying 1.75% as income tax here in Belize. In addition to that, there's no capital gains tax. Now, this is exactly what land bankers like, because if you're able to pick up property today for 55, 56,000, you sell it in a couple of years for 65,000, you have 0% capital gains tax here in Belize on that $10,000 gain. 0% property tax or capital gains tax. That's huge. And in addition to that, you have very low property tax. It's considered to be 1% of the unimproved land, but it is fairly arbitrary. So for example, a parcel of land has about 5,500, 6,000 square feet. You're going to be paying about $100 US per year on that property tax. So very nominal. And then of course we added this at the end, but this is something I think why we're seeing a lot of people choose Belize over Mexico is that you as a foreigner, you receive title to your property. I know a lot of times if people have looked in Mexico, they have the lease there, the 99-year lease, but here in Belize, it's yours. You get title to it. You can decide what you want to do with it. You can leave it for your kids or your grandkids down the line, but it's up to you to decide how it is that you want to title the property. And we are continuing to see Belize continue to grow. We have a handful of flights that come to Belize already. There are more that are coming, not pictured on here, but we have the directs now coming from San Francisco, coming from Baltimore, coming from JFK. And then seasonally, we also see the direct flights coming in from Canada. At some point, I do anticipate that we'll be introducing the European market to Belize, especially with those direct flights. Right now, we don't have any directs coming in from Europe, but if you can just imagine what that will do in terms of tourism and the increase in tourism, it's going to be phenomenal. And the more people we have coming into the country, the more eyes on the country. And as we've continued to see real estate prices continue to increase. So if you're looking for a full comprehensive list of all the flights that are coming into the country direct, feel free to reach out. I can get you that chart, but we're continuing to see more and more directs coming into the country. Now, when you're looking to invest in Belize, and whether you're looking to invest in Belize or anywhere, you typically want to be looking at where the tourists are going. So for example, Ambergris Caye continues to be the #1 tourism destination for the entire country year after year. This little island on the north, you can see the circle right over there. Let me pull up my picture here, but on the top part of the screen over here, the top right, that little island, Ambergris Caye, continues to be the #1 tourism destination year after year. And there's a big reason for that. It's because Ambergris Caye parallels the longest living reef in the world. Like I mentioned before, 5 minutes, you can be from the coast into the water. Where if you're going to other destinations like Placencia or Hopkins, it's going to take an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes to get out to that same reef. So we're going to continue to see tourism here, strong tourism here, and we can see it in the numbers already. Do note that for the 2024 number, this was only through August. The Belize Tourism Board had only posted through August at the time that we put this together, but we are expecting it to quickly go past that for the rest of the year. So we've just seen year after year growth of the people who are coming to Ambergris Caye, and there's a reason for it. Yes, we parallel the reef, but it's also a very charming little town. You have colorful buildings, you have very friendly people. We drive golf carts, right? It's a very, very sweet environment that a lot of people are looking for when they're coming to a tropical destination. In addition to that, we were talking about the tourism rates, but we do continue to see the rates increase. So the light blue over here is representing 2024. Note this is from January to August, but we can just see it continuing to go up. Now, a lot of people do ask me about high season. When is high season on the island? So you can see right over here when it peaks, March is actually one of the busiest times of year here because we have a lot of the spring break travelers. And not those crazy college kids who want to go to all-inclusive places. We don't really have all-inclusive here. We have the families that are coming down together, the kids that are not in school and they're coming down with their parents, or they're bringing their grandparents down. So it's a very family fun, very family friendly, very family centric location here in the Caribbean. And there's a lot to do because it is a very safe island. You are encouraged to get in that golf cart and go drive around, go from north to south, go stop at the beach bars and the restaurants, go over to the beaches and hang in the water, go snorkel, go watch the sunsets. There's a variety of activities for people when they're coming from the tourism perspective. But we are seeing that growth is happening very, very quickly. So when I moved here in 2012, the road going north was not yet paved. It was very potholy. It was a whole trek to get just over the bridge and to visit anything north. And my friends made fun of me because I usually did not go much further than my condo that I was in, which lived in town. And I would go to the grocery store, I would go to work, I would go visit friends for meals, but I was never really going north of the bridge. It just felt so far at that time. Now, if 12 years ago I had bought property north of the bridge at an area that seemed so far, I would have been very, very happy that I did so, especially when I show you some of the numbers of what the land was going for right over the bridge very recently. So we do see all of the yellow areas that you see here, all those outlines, that is surveyed land here on the island. And what we're seeing is that the growth is happening in a northward direction. And San Pedro Town, follow my cursor, San Pedro Town is right over here, but that growth is happening in a northward direction. And as you can probably guess, it's because that's where a majority of the land is. So when you look south, you can see a lot of that land is already surveyed, not much land left. So it makes sense that the development is happening in that northward direction. But where you see this pin right over here, that is where the bridge is located. And earlier this year in 2024, they actually created a second bridge or a second lane for that bridge so that we have one bridge with a lane going north and one bridge with a lane going south, which was a huge improvement to the infrastructure here, which we're really, really excited about. But it's happening quickly, folks, exponentially, I would say, over the last few years, especially when I compare it to the growth and the appreciation in the years prior. It's just continuing to happen quicker and quicker and quicker. And like we were saying, the time is now. Sarah mentioned being a little too late for Cabo, but we're at that point now. We're here on Ambergris Caye. We're seeing that growth happen. So even, this isn't too long ago, not even 10 years ago, Secret Beach was just this little dirt road to get out there. And just a few years later, it's turned into one of the most popular tourism destinations here in the country. So we're seeing that growth is happening. And if you still can be in the forefront of it at this time. But I actually do want to jump into a couple of case studies with you so you can see what numbers look like and what we've seen in terms of progress here in Ambergris. So this is case study. This is for Secret Beach area specifically. And I want to talk about this because this is an area I think that most people have heard about, or most people will hear about. And it's just one of the few places that right now are still available for ownership opportunities. But this is Secret Beach. I remember going to Secret Beach in 2012. I was with a realtor on the island at that time. And I told you, I didn't really venture too far north of the bridge, but this time I did. He was telling me about this really great land opportunity where I can invest in this land up north. And it was only at that time, it was like $10,000, $12,000. And he's like, this place is going to be booming. This is going to be something in the next 5-6 years. Now it's taken a little bit longer than that, right? But what I can tell you is we've seen those real estate prices skyrocket. And you can just see there on the screen from when I went in 2012, where it's like $12,000. Now the land in that same area, that same neighborhood is going for close to $50,000. But let's talk a little bit more about what that looked like, what that progress looked like over the last 20 years. So in 2003, that land was actually surveyed. It was called Ambergris Caye, and it was given to Belizeans. So here in Belize, it's pretty neat. Belizeans have right to land, and they just have to put in an application. They get approved, and then they get a lease. At some point, they can convert that lease to a title. And I remember I met up with the councilwoman who was the one in charge of this specific project. This was fairly recently. I met up with her, and I was talking to her about this initiative that she had. And she told me she was going from door to door, knocking at people's doors saying, hey, we have land. If you want a parcel of it, you just have to apply. Here's the application. And she said that she had such a hard time giving away this land because there was nothing there, right? There was no road access. There were, of course, stunning beaches, but there was no road access. There was nothing for, the lifestyle perspective. Now, she said that the Belizeans who did end up taking her up on this are very, very happy that they ended up doing so, because 20 years later, the property that they received for free now has real value. But this is just a prime example of something that we're seeing throughout the rest of the island. Properties that may not necessarily be accessible or may not necessarily be in the heart of everything right now are going to get to that point. But we can see in 2009 to 2011, the Grand Belizean Estate started. That was one of the neighborhoods within the Secret Beach area. And that was really more so geared towards foreigners. It wasn't land that was given to the locals like we've seen Ambergris Caye. Then in 2014, the road was graded to the Secret Beach turnoff. 2015, it was graded to the beachfront. And then 2016 is really when we started to see the restaurants and the bars get started. Now, 2024, the main road going out to Secret Beach is starting to get paved. The Belize Tourism Board has committed to 1 mile so far. But this area is and continues to remain completely off grid. The one thing that I will mention is that there are thousands of parcels here at Secret Beach. So if you're somebody who's thinking about investing in land banking, you probably want to be thinking about something that may not necessarily be as oversaturated like this. So this area right over here, they have recently gotten approval for a subdivision, and right over here as well, they have also recently gotten approval for a subdivision. So there's going to be an additional a few thousand at least parcels that are introduced here to the Secret Beach area. So if you are someone who's like so set on Secret Beach and I have to be here, you probably want to have a parcel that's unique. I think beachfront in this area is really where the real value is. But we can see right now that the appreciation levels in Secret Beach have plateaued because Secret Beach has been growing and expanding for 20 years, right? Since 2003, when that councilwoman was giving away land up here in that Secret Bay area or the Ambergris Bay area, to what it is now, we've seen just a big push in the last 20 years of this area. But this is a prime example of what we're seeing on the island already in other neighborhoods and other areas. But we can see here, this is from 2014. I mentioned to you that they finally got that road, the beach road out to the water over here, and it was rough. I can tell you when we went, it was really, really rough. Now, 2022, we can see that this land development, let me go back from 2014 to 2022 has grown. And now I can tell you in 2 years from when this was taken, so now to 2024, it has grown even more. So it went from 1 acre of beachfront tourism development to nearly 21 acres of beachfront development in less than 10 years. So like we said, we've seen thousands of lots. We've seen people who are starting to build. We've seen dozens of new projects and homes that are under construction. But again, this has already had, it's about 20 years in appreciation. We are also seeing beachfront premium. So beachfront land here, if you're looking to be right on that turquoise water, you're going to be spending about $500,000 to $700,000 for just an average parcel of land. I would say one that's about 50 by 75. So not huge land specifically, but they are certainly at a premium. But what I want to do is I want to highlight a couple of more locations because the progress is really heading in that northward direction. I want to highlight some of the property prices of what we're seeing along the coast over here. And what I'll tell you is depending on what your timeline looks like to invest, you may find that there's a certain area of the island that makes more sense for your timeline than the others. Right, I'm going to say just generally though, here on Ambergris Caye, you want to be holding property for about 3 years. I would say a 3-year minimum, and then from there, sell it for appreciation. If you're trying to sell it prior to the 3 years, you're going to have minimal appreciation. I would say 3 years is really the prime amount of time, and then of course the longer the better. But 2016 to 2023 is really when we saw this area right over here just appreciate like crazy, especially when that bridge went in and then the road got paved. So here's the bridge, and then the road got paved in about 2015, coming up to about this area over here. So all of a sudden that land tripled, quadrupled. It was unbelievable to see the values of those properties go up. So I would say this area, if you're looking for appreciation, has really, this has plateaued. This has truly plateaued at this point. The next area that we're seeing currently appreciating at higher rates than others is here between mile 4 and 7. I'm going to expect over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to see this area appreciate quicker than other areas. But then what we're going to be seeing a big focus on, and we already are actually, is this Newtown area. So Newtown is an area that I'm going to talk about quite a bit because this is the area that the government, the town council is pushing people to relocate to because San Pedro town has been getting congested. There are a lot of golf carts. There's nowhere else for people to be building. So they have allocated land up here. The government has allocated land up here for Belizeans called Heredia subdivision to build their homes. They're giving the land to the locals. They can build their homes here and finally be able to afford their own home. Where in town, they just certainly, you can't afford it, right? You can't afford it because it's gotten so expensive. So this is the area where the government has allocated land for a hospital. They've allocated land for a school. In addition to that, for all of the families that live up here, they have already, they have a school bus that'll take the kids down into town to school until there's enough folks up here to start the school. So this is the area that I think is a prime space to be focusing on. But again, depending on timelines, what we're seeing the next 4 miles would be from 2029 to 35. And then anywhere from 2034 up is where you're going to be seeing this mile 15 and plus. And so something I do want to mention is when you get from the bridge, we refer to these mile markers that I'm referring to as the destination, the location from the bridge, the mileage from the bridge. So you go from the bridge to about 4 miles. That's this area over here. And then 4 to 7 miles from the bridge. And then Newtown is about 8 to 10. And then 10 to 14. And then mile 15. This is all from the bridge area. Now it doesn't all have utilities at this point. Right now, electricity goes up to about Tranquility Bay right over here. But there was an announcement recently that the World Bank is committing to a $300 million investment into Ambergris Caye to continue the infrastructure work up north. So we're really excited to see that it really is specifically geared towards the north and making sure the infrastructure is in for that. But let's talk a little bit more about some of these prices. So I mentioned to you that the properties here in Tres Cocos are just at premiums. If you're looking for that appreciation, this is kind of come and gone. You're going to be paying a premium right now for properties here. But this was a smaller lot, 70 by 150, that was going for 675. This actually closed already, but this one was going for 675. In this area right over here, this is that next segment that we're seeing really starting to appreciate, a 50 by 100 going for 350. The next area, beachfront property, you have tons of Airbnbs already along the coast over here, but this is 70 by 190 going for 300,000. As we continue up over here, we see a 72 by 140, and this is feet, by the way, 72 feet by 140, going for 275. And then once we get up here to that area on the northern side, we see a 200 by 366 going for 136,000. Now, do know, you see my little arrow over here, to get to this area, it takes about an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours by golf cart. I say about 2 hours is more accurate because of the bumps and the holes and everything along those lines. But with that being said, if you're in for the longer haul, this could be a place that you're looking. But if you're looking for that midterm investment, I would say this is the area that you want to be looking in. But we can just see here a prime example of what prices are. Now, it's not exactly comparable because these lot sizes aren't all the same, but it gives you an idea of what beachfront prices look like. Now, with that being said, I do want to talk a little bit more about the growth and the development. So this is San Mateo. This is actually a great picture. So this is from 2014. This is where the bridge is right over here. And then you can see that the road was not paved. It was graded, but it was very miserable, potholey, bumpy. But this is San Mateo. This is a local neighborhood. And in this local neighborhood over here, they gave land to folks to build their homes and just have a place to live. And then we can see in 2022 how this has really grown. And we're continuing to see, as the island continues to grow, there's going to continue to be a demand for local housing in order to continue keeping the service industry up. And that's something that I think that Newtown area is going to do very well, catering to families as well who need housing. So here's an example from 2014. This is the Ely subdivision. This is Mahogany Bay. Some people may have heard about Mahogany Bay before, but this is the Ely subdivision. Again, another local neighborhood. And we can see here in 2022 how that has grown tremendously as well. Let me go back. Again, this is Mahogany Bay, 2014. And you can see over that 8 years, all of these homes that have started to pop up here as well. But just generally too, around the Ely subdivision, continued growth here on the island. So I'm going to jump into the steps. How to identify the right property for you in terms of profit. The first step I would say is identify your timeline. This is really important. How long realistically would you like to own this land? As we saw, there are some areas that appreciate faster than others. So it's important for you to be realistic. Now, we understand life happens. You may have to sell sooner than anticipated. But if you're realistic about what you want in terms of your investment, then it's easier to identify an area that best fits your timeline. Step number 2 is going to be looking at the trends. So look to see where the big money is going. You know, there are big companies that are already coming here into Belize on Ambergris Caye, and they're doing the legwork. They are already putting in their time and money and energy and resources, and all you have to do is piggyback off of their efforts. Now, we've seen generally, as an island, Ambergris Caye is where the big brands are going to. While there are other lovely spots in Belize, this is the central hub for tourism. This is where the hotel brands are continuing to go. So we already have two Marriotts, one down at Mahogany Bay, and then one just south right over here called Alaya, the Margaritaville, which is located right over here about 13 miles north. Then there's the Hilton, Best Western, Preferred, and then something else that's coming is the Six Senses right here on the west side of the island. If you haven't heard of Six Senses yet, it is a high-end luxury resort and residences brand. It is more so found in Europe, but it's very, very high-end luxury. So that has already started construction as well. And then fun fact, for those of you who do not know, Blackador Caye right over here is owned by Leonardo DiCaprio. So you do have a celebrity right there just across the bay from you. So you can see we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. These companies have already put in the resources and time and energy to allocate their resources and put it here on Ambergris Caye. But I think seeing Margaritaville is also proof that the progress is heading in the northward direction. And they are certainly pioneers here. And we are seeing that it is doing well for them. So again, coming back to the Newtown area, you'll see the stars over here because this is the area where personally I think that we're going to be seeing the next set of appreciation like we've already seen at Secret Beach over the last 20 years. This is where we anticipate we're going to be seeing it in the future. Now the South, we really don't hear much about the South, because you can see there's just limited land there, but this is an ideal spot for somebody who wants to relocate here. You do tend to find it's more residential than other parts of the island. You do also have a lot of the schools on the south side of the island. So if you're somebody who's planning to relocate to Belize with kids, then you may want to look at being on the south side over here because the school is not yet opened in Newtown. But if you're looking really for investment and you're looking to land bank, then you want to be looking in that northward direction. And then tip number 3 for you is determine what makes the property unique. So this is something I heard at one of the Live and Invest conferences I went to with Leaf Simon. I think some of you are followers of him, but he said, don't buy common. When you're buying property, think about resale. What is going to set your property aside from the rest of the competition that's out there? And when it comes to land banking, land specifically, what we've seen are a few factors. One is a corner lot. Corner lots always tend to sell better and for more than other lots. In addition to that, adjacent parcels. If you have the ability to pick up multiple parcels that are adjacent to each other, do it. And the reason I say that is because as the island continues to grow and develop, it's getting harder and harder to find those larger chunks of land. And I don't necessarily mean larger in terms of 20 acres or so, but if the average Joe is coming in and just wants something a little bit larger than 5,000 square feet, maybe they're just looking for 10,000 or 15,000 square feet, but you have that because you have multiple parcels, that's perfect. So we do find that adjacent parcels do tend to sell well together. In addition to that, properties that are off the main road. So if you're looking at some commercial opportunity, also properties that are a little bit larger than others, just having a little bit of extra square footage helps. And then of course, high land, utility access and whatnot. Utility access is something that is of course important. Here in Belize, you do have to remember that if they're talking about something that's gonna happen, it could happen at some point, but I would never base your investment decision on something that could happen. But you want to see what's going on, where the progress is going already. So let's quickly recap. These are the 3 steps that I recommend when you're looking to land bank is 1, identify your timeline. It's really important to know ideally how long you want to be holding for. And again, I would recommend holding for at least 3 years here on Ambergris Caye, regardless of where on the island you're purchasing. Number 2 is look at the trends. Where is the money headed? We already seen that the money is coming here to Ambergris Caye. And can you get ahead of the curve? Like we said, we've seen Secret Beach is at that point, it's plateaued a bit, but we want to be getting ahead of the curve. And that's continuing to head in this northward direction. By unique, what is the competition like? And how is my property unique? So again, those corner, the adjacent lots, something along those lines as well. Something too that I would recommend is filling your property. I know a lot of times here we're on an island and it's not uncommon to have to fill your property. So if you have the ability to do so, fill it, and you can typically get a higher number down the line for your filled property. But remember, and I just alluded to this, Belize is notorious for Belize time. And it's not just showing up late to grab me a cup of coffee, but it's also that infrastructure timelines are not guaranteed. So while we do have really exciting things that are coming here to the island and a lot of infrastructure promises, please do remember that it may take some time, right? It may take some time for that to get implemented, but those base hits are key here when you're investing. So even just a little bit of fill going in that northward direction, or conversations about infrastructure improvements are going a long way. So I do want to highlight an opportunity for profit for you in the Platinum Point subdivision. This is in that Newtown area, the area that I was alluding to as being the next. It's the new town, right? It's the new town coming to Ambergris Caye because there is a lot of congestion in town. It's located about 8.5 miles north, only about a 5-minute stroll to the Caribbean waters, and about 2,000 feet to the Cayo Francis Lagoon right over here, which has some of the most incredible fishing on the entire island. But there are entry-level lots here starting for about 56,000, 5,500 square feet. But what I like about this property specifically is that there is really attractive financing. We'll go through that. It is friendly for your self-directed IRA, and there's also road access already here. Now, in addition to that, the developer is bringing out electricity, so you do have the electricity hookup, which is a huge plus, a huge win for the land banking perspective. But what I also want to mention is something I alluded to before as well, is that the World Bank is allocating $300 million for the development of North Ambergris, which includes new roads with proper drainage, sewage, electricity. And then they've also been talking about a new airport, but this is great here. The first phase of this plan, expected to start early next year, is paving of the road up to Margaritaville. So let me actually just go back here to the map a little bit. So here's Margaritaville. The pavement currently stops right over here. This is at that Secret Beach turnoff. It's actually a little bit before that at Cocoa Beach. So this stretch from the turnoff over here to Margaritaville is the next stage of infrastructure improvement here on the island. So this is huge. This is a technical, I mean, this can be insider information for you if you haven't heard it before, but this is something that was just disclosed about a week and a half ago. So it's very exciting for anybody who owns land up north, because from that, of course, you can see the instant appreciation. But again, coming back here to the Platinum Point subdivision, this is an area that I think is absolutely up and coming. We're already seeing it as up and coming. There are about 4 or 5 dozen homes in the Heredia subdivision that have been completed. The land right over here has been allocated for the hospital, the future hospital, the future school. I don't have timelines on those, but I can tell you the land has been allocated, which is huge. In addition to that, you have Sapphire Beach located right over here, and then there are really nice Airbnbs that line the coastline right over here. And then a couple of corner stores, grocery stores along this stretch. So, we're seeing it as really being the prime location, the prime spot right now. But I did want to mention to you the phase 2 financing. Now, this is just for these lots right over here, 11, 14, 15, 18, 19, and 22. 11, 14, 15, 18, 19, and 22 is the developer is willing to offer 70% financing. It's going to be a 30-year AM with a 5-year term. So that means your monthly payments are coming out to about $287.12 with a little less than $17,000 down. This is huge. I've mentioned it before. And if you've listened to any of our sessions previously, you know that getting financing as a foreigner is near impossible through a local bank unless the seller is willing to offer seller financing. So typically standard terms are about 50% down, 50% down. In this case, there is 70% financing, so you only have to put 30% down. Now, something I mentioned to you as well is what can set your parcel aside or what can make your property unique. And we mentioned filling. So it's not uncommon to have to fill your land here in Belize. So if you want to jumpstart that process, the developer is also willing to finance the filling, which is absolutely unheard of here. Usually once you own the land, then you're responsible for filling it. And that is 100% of the time, or I guess 99% of the time, a cash deal with the person who's doing the fill for you. Now, in this case, the developer will finance the fill. The financing rates for the fill is a little different than what you see here on the screen. So just email me info@lunarealtybelize.com, info@lunarealtybelize.com, and I can get those details over to you. What I also like about this property is that right here, you see the open space, the 1 acre. This is going to be a landscape park with walking paths and whatnot. So you have really the best of both worlds. You have this like jungly environment, but you can also get right over here to the beach in just a quick 5 minutes. So there is direct access to the beach right through this way over here. And it takes about 5 minutes to get there. Now, Sarah, I know you've invested all across Ambergris Caye, and obviously you've invested in the north as well. What do you think about your north side investments compared to some of the other properties you have on the island?
Well, I'm going to speak again as an investor. And as an investor, it's been really pounded in my brain over the years that it's always about the path of progress. And so, we invest in different assets here in the States. We're looking at, where's the growth going? Where are people going? And, you have to be ahead of the curve because once they're there and been built, it's pretty much everybody behind the scenes have already made their money. The investors already made their money. So you have to look at where the progress is going, where things are moving towards. And one of the things with Margaritaville that is such a huge deal is, these brands have already established, they've done their due diligence, right? So just as Rachel explained, they've already done all the heavy lifting. We're just the little guys out here just piggybacking on the efforts that they've made. So once those big guys are already established, Margaritaville just opened last year. That was a game changer for the north side of the island. Before Margaritaville went in, I probably would not have thought too much about the north. And we bought different parcels on the south side and the north side. But the bigger brands going north is a game changer. So that was a big indication for us that we need to be focusing on the north. And what we have learned is that because of that, the last couple of years, we are now seeing the signs of progress and the development signs of different projects going in for planned developments and whatnot in the north. So again, just from an investor standpoint, like Wayne Gretzky is like, I go where the puck is going, not where it's been. I think I said that right. But the
Correct.
point is, I said it wrong. But the point is that you want to be ahead of it. And we don't have a crystal ball. It's hard. We can't predict the future. We don't have a crystal ball. We wish we did, just where we could predict the future. However, we can look at trends. We can look at trends. We can look at history. We can look at what's already happened. We can look at the South Side, what's already happened as the example. We can look at Secret Beach as the benchmark. So we already know that these things, history tends to repeat itself. And with that, the progress is inevitable. So it's whether we buy it or somebody else buys it, someone's going to do it. So is it going to be me or you or somebody else? It doesn't matter. Someone's going to do it. Now, I'd like to say that it would be us because we're looking, if you're on this webinar, you're thinking about it and you're thinking about the future. So from a land banking perspective, for somebody like me who wants to bank money and just set and forget it, it's a really great investment strategy because I don't have to, worry about tenants and maintenance and upkeep. And, with inflation going through, with the inflation rising over the last several years, it's just a good investment strategy where I can diversify some of our portfolio and not be in all, rental properties and all multifamily or all these other things. And so it does help me diversify some of it. And I get a piece of paradise. I know that, hey, I have a piece of paradise in the Caribbean in Belize, right? And so I know when I go to Belize, I can go see my plot. And if I want to build on it one day, I will. And so those are the things that are really exciting for me. So I would urge all of you, again, path of progress is where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, they say location, location, location in real estate, and it is a very, very true adage. It's been around for years for a reason. All right, so I'm gonna pull up this next poll over here. Everyone, you'll see it pop up on your screen. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is, what is your primary goal? Are you looking to own property solely for investment purposes? Are you looking to buy now, decide later? Are you looking to relocate to Belize in the near future? Or you're just not entirely sure yet, but you know that Belize is a place that you should be looking, and that's why you're on our session today. So I'll give you just a couple more seconds. We'll do 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. I'm going to end the poll and share the results over here. So, this is interesting. So we have about 22% of people who are looking for owning property for investment purposes only, 22% that are looking to buy now, decide later, 22% looking to relocate to Belize in the near future. And then we have 33% they're not sure yet, but they're figuring it out. Awesome. Well, these are some really good numbers. And how I look at it, my personal investment strategy in Belize and on Ambergris Caye is just buy land, continue to buy land, because we've seen what the prices have looked like, especially like I mentioned over the last few years. They've just continued to go up and they are not slowing down. So even if you don't necessarily know what you want to do, just picking up a parcel of land, sitting back, letting it appreciate, like we talked about, the 0% capital gains tax, very low property tax as well. You don't have to deal with renters. It just makes sense. So awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating there. What I'm going to do is open up the floor to questions and answers at this time. So if you have any questions that you would like answered, anything maybe that we started to talk about that you'd like a little bit more information about, feel free to type it into that Q&A section and we will get those answers to you. All right, so I see Chris is saying, I know the focus of this call is Ambergris Caye. Could you compare that to Caye Caulker by opportunities, smaller or similar? Oh, great question. So Caye Caulker is considered the sister island to Ambergris Caye. The motto there is go slow. So Ambergris Caye compared to Caye Caulker is just so incredibly different. Caye Caulker is small population wise. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 people. Where here on Ambergris Caye, it's about 40,000 people. So, I see that people are looking at Caye Caulker when they want more of that go slow mentality. However, we do tend to see and historically it was more of a backpacker sort of environment. Where Ambergris Caye was always the island that was moving faster in terms of development and where the big brands and whatnot were going. Now, I don't think you could lose from buying any land here in Belize, really, especially if you have that longer term hold. but we do see appreciation is happening faster on Ambergris Caye. When we look at prices, we do tend to see them as fairly similar. Key Cocker may be a little bit less than Ambergris Caye, but Ambergris Caye appreciates at a quicker rate than Key Cocker does, just because of the sheer size of it. Tony saying, great job on your map on the left. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate your support. Jay, hey, Jay, good to see your name. Which side of the island is considered more valuable, Caribbean or Lagoon? I'm going to come back to the map here because this is a really, really great question. And what I find at the end of the day is that it comes down to personal preference, really. So here, the land on the Caribbean side is on the east side of the island is always going to be valuable because of the quick access to the reef, right? The island, the basis of this island was founded on diving, fishing, and snorkeling. So when you have access right here on the east side of the island, when you have land on the east side of the island, you're able to get to the reef in 5 minutes, right? From the time you get into your boat to the time that you're out there in water, it's just a couple of minutes, and it's hard to compare that to the lagoon side or to the west side of the island. Also, the utilities continue to run up the coast over here on the east side, whereas here on the west side, there are no utilities. So Secret Beach, for example, is all completely off grid. Now, with that being said, we have here on the Caribbean side, we do get the sargassum that comes in, the seagrass, which they do not get on the west side of the island. Now, sometimes it bothers people more than others, but it is seasonal. We had a very mild year this year. Mother Nature just kind of does her thing. We don't know when it's coming, but we did have a very mild year this year. So I will say that divers, fishermen, snorkelers, the reason people are coming to Ambergris, or a lot of those adventure travelers we were talking about, are coming to get into the water. But at the same time, there's beautiful water on the west side and also within the lagoons. You do tend to find that lagoon front property. So like in this area over here, lagoon front versus bay front. This is all bay front. This is all the Bay of Chetumal. But the lagoon front tends to be priced less than anything that you're going to find on the bay side or on the east side of the island. But at the end of the day, we do find that the right property, right properties are going to appreciate. And, what makes it the right property? Well, there are a handful of factors that goes into that. There's, especially if you're looking at finished property, how good is the construction, the quality of the construction, if it's already rented, how strong are those rentals, but a lot of factors. And good question, Jay. Oh, James is ready to buy another lot. Fantastic, James. We'll reach out, we get that information over to you. Chuck is saying, you mentioned purchasing land is IRA friendly. Can you discuss that further? Sarah, do you mind jumping in for this one? Because I know this is something that you've done personally and you've helped your clients quite a bit with this as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So one of the beauties of the IRA is that you can actually use it to invest in both land and in real estate, real property. This is something that I discovered several years ago, and it was a game changer. It really opened up my world in terms of investing. And I didn't realize that I could take my IRA or my 401k that I had from previous employers and roll them into a physical asset, such as a parcel or a property. And so everything as far as the rules apply to your IRA or your 401k. What they do is they structured under as a self-directed 401k or IRA, and everything is tax deferred, just like as you would roll it over from an IRA or from a 401k to an IRA. And so all of those same rules apply. It's just that the particular asset, instead of putting your funds into the stock market or mutual funds, you're putting it into a physical piece of property. So that is something that I've done multiple times. And I've had several clients and other investors and friends do it the same way. And it's a great strategy because, again, it's a long-term hold. If you're doing it this way, we're not going with the volatility of the stock market. We're not wondering if our portfolio is down. With inflation, it's a great hedge. So it's just a great, secure, long-term way of holding an asset in terms of just a piece of property or a piece of land. Because again, property taxes are about $100. And so really the very low expenses, and I can just set it and forget it and just know that it'll be there, and I know where it's at. And so it's just been a great strategy. So if that is something that you're interested in, please reach out to Rachel because she has helped a number of our clients do that as well. So it's been a great tool to use for investing.
Yeah, perfect. And, do note that if you are planning to do that, you really do need to have a BA for investment purposes only. Right? It's not something that you're going to buy, the land and build your dream house in and then go live in it next year. Right? You really do need to be thinking about it from the investment perspective. So yeah, great question, Chuck. Very good question. Mark is saying, what are your thoughts on the land south of Secret Beach around down to around Sunset Cove? So here down to Sunset Cove. That's a great question. It's a beautiful area of the island, but something that I will caution you about is not many of those parcels have road access. So, and that is something that is important. And it's not that there, just isn't a road right now. It's just that there is no road ever slated to go in. So this is really something that's important as you're talking to your real estate agent to look to see at the surveyed parcels. And if we come back to the Secret Beach, here we go. So if we look in this area right over here, so this is a map of all the surveyed parcels on Ambergris Caye. So like that would be in this area over here. You can get, I know you can get some very, inexpensive beachfront land, but it's boat access only, and there will never be a road there because there's no road ever slated in the surveyed map here. And it's also very lagoony and needs quite a bit of fill. So the other thing to mention is if it's boat access only, that means you need, of course, to have a boat, number one, and number two, you need to have a dock in order to accommodate your boat. But you can't have docks more than, they have to be at least 100 feet apart from each other. So if your neighbor has a dock already and the other neighbor on the other side of you has a dock, you can't get a dock. So it's just due diligence questions like that that make sense. I think just for ease of your real estate values, you want to make sure that there could at least be a road in the future, even if it's not in now. And we actually saw this example from one of our clients who owns property here, purchased a few years ago. He saw what some of the properties were selling at now, but he thought there'd be a road, and there's actually no road access to his parcel. So he's, wish he had asked the question before, is there road access? Can there be road access? Because that is a very important part of that process. Now, it's something, especially if you're coming from a developed country, that you may not necessarily think about, but questions like, are there utility hookups? If they're not, are there plans to be utility hookups? If the plan, if you get the answer to if there are plans and they say yes, I would never believe timelines because things are always a little bit later here, but look for where that momentum is already heading. Great question, Mark. Great question. So I'm seeing a couple more come in. What we'll do is, if you have specific questions, and I see a few of those here, what we can do is get those questions answered for you one-on-one. I would recommend reaching out to us, info@lunarealtybelize.com, to discuss your options. Like we talked about, this Platinum Point here in Newtown is one of the easiest, I think, most affordable ways to get into the market. With only about 17,000 down and monthly payments of about $287. You're able to at least get your foothold here into the marketplace. But again, reach out to us, info@lunarealtybelize.com. And I appreciate everybody so much for joining us tonight. Sarah, thank you tons tremendously.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It was great to be here.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, we look forward to hearing from everybody. And in the meantime, have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.